The hallowed ground of Bristol Zoo Gardens was our city's crown jewels for 2 centuries. It is a unique slice of paradise in historic fabric, hidden within the protective walls of its 12-acre site, woven into the heart of our city. The world's 5th oldest zoo, with an international reputation for conservation, had an intangible magic when you moved around it. It was a phenomenal juxtaposition of natural and urban, of people and wildlife. Bristol Zoo Gardens is part of Bristol's collective memory and is in yours and my DNA. Before COVID hit in 2020, Bristol Zoological Society is on record numerous times talking about its continuing significant success and value. Then COVID hit, and within the space of a few months, the society did a handbrake turn and suddenly started talking about how terrible everything was. Bristol Zoo had been struggling for years. Visitor numbers were falling off a cliff, finances were in dire straits, the zoo wasn't fit for purpose, and the only solution to stop the whole charity from going under was to sell Bristol Zoo Gardens and move the zoo to the wild place.
We now know that there was no good reason to close Bristol Zoo Gardens, and despite what you might have been led to believe, Bristol Zoo Gardens can reopen and we can have our zoo back. A new 100-page report has been published which states that Bristol Zoological Society misled its shareholders and the public over its reasons for closing its nearly 200-year-old zoo. None of the reasons given for the closure stands up to serious scrutiny. The decision was ill-informed and knee-jerk, made during the COVID pandemic via Zoom by an inexperienced executive team. We were told Bristol Zoo was moving to the wild place at Cribbs Causeway to, in the words of Bristol Zoological Society, improve the lives of our amazing animals. In the summer of 2022, everywhere you looked on billboards and buses, there were posters stating that Bristol Zoo was moving. This was not true. Over 99% of the animals from Bristol Zoo did not go to the wild place. They went to other zoos, very similar to Bristol Zoo. In fact, only one mammal, the blue-eyed black lemurs, have so far made the trip to the wild place, with only one more scheduled to do so, the gorillas. The new enclosures that have been built are very similar in size and facilities to those at Bristol Zoo Gardens. The report presents evidence of a deeply flawed decision-making process based on highly misleading information and calls on Bristol Zoological Society shareholders and trustees to revisit the original decision to close Bristol Zoo Gardens in light of this new information. Bristol Zoo Gardens was consistently ranked among the top 10 most visited zoos in the UK every year, always attracting well over 500,000 annual visitors. We were told that financial difficulties exacerbated by COVID were a big reason Bristol Zoo Gardens had to close. In fact, these so-called financial difficulties were accounting tricks. Accounts were retrospectively presented to fit the failing narrative to justify closure. Finances were healthy, further boosted by a £2.5 million insurance payout to cover COVID losses. Between 2019 and 2022, Bristol Zoo's new management spending on consultants rose an astonishing 864%, and in that time, £500,000 more was spent on consultants than conservation projects. To put that into context for you, £500,000 could fund Bristol Zoo's gorilla in situ conservation work in Equatorial Guinea for the next 50 years. Between 2019 and 2022, Bristol Zoo's management spent £3.252 million on consultancy. To put that into context, £3.252 million could have funded the complete refurbishment and redevelopment of Bristol Zoo. We were told it would be better for conservation to close Bristol Zoo Gardens and move to the wild place. In fact, lower visitor numbers equals fewer resources to spend on conservation projects. Since Bristol Zoo Gardens closed, Bristol Zoological Society has lost over 500,000 annual visitors. That's 500,000 visitors in the bin. Would we let these loved Bristol institutions go forever for the price of a car park, a cafe, new drainage, and self-inflicted debt consolidation?
Visit www.savebristolzoogardens.org to find out how you can help make new Bristol Zoo a reality.